Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
After 20 years sharing the same roof, Patrick lived as if he had already completed all the chapters of life he had planned. He got married young, worked hard, built stability. The house was there, the bank account in order, the marriage apparently solid. But time, even when silent, changes everything. The constant attempt to have children gradually turned into an invisible wound. Each negative test, each medical appointment, each frustrated hope created subtle cracks between him and Lauren. And instead of talking about these scars, they preferred to protect themselves with comfortable silences. Patrick dove into routine. He came home from work, had dinner, turned on the TV, and went to sleep. Slowly, the effort of building a life together became just maintenance of a structure that no longer sheltered them the same way. Lauren, on the other hand, seemed restless. She never complained directly, but she was always seeking new activities, new circles, more movement. Patrick found it understandable. He even thought it was good that she went out with her best friend, Julie, once a week. He saw it as necessary breathing space, a healthy way to maintain balance. Trust, for Patrick, was something you gave whole or not at all. And he gave it. He never questioned the times, the places, the reasons. He believed that real love doesn't demand surveillance, it demands space. And it was exactly that space that Lauren seemed to need more and more. What Patrick didn't realize is that, over the years, that relationship had lost its nuance. They still respected each other, still shared the same bed, still exchanged good mornings and good nights, but it was all protocol. There was no more surprise, no curiosity. He stopped noticing the details. Lauren changed her haircut, bought new clothes, switched perfumes, and nothing stirred a reaction. Patrick had become a passive observer of a life he once built with passion. He believed that stability was enough, that the absence of conflict was a sign of peace. But in reality, it was just an echo. What was once pulsing love had turned into a silent partnership, sustained by old memories and a mutual fear of starting over from zero. During work hours, Patrick focused on reports, goals, and meetings. He was competent, methodical, discreet. In the office, many saw him as a man who had it all, married for 2 decades, no scandals, always calm. He was admired for his posture and his peaceful life. But he carried within him a kind of anesthesia. He no longer dreamed like before. He accepted that being an adult meant giving up some desires. He never admitted this aloud, but it was evident in his decisions. Lauren still talked about trips she wanted to take, courses she considered starting, and he would just smile slightly, respond with evasive phrases, like someone who had already given up before trying. It was in the midst of this passivity that everything began to crumble, albeit subtly. Patrick would remember forever that lunch with an old client who had become a friend. They were at a discreet restaurant, finalizing a deal. Between one bite and another, the client casually mentioned, almost irrelevantly, that he had seen Lauren and Julie at a bar in town. He added, smiling, "Your wife dances very well." It was the type of comment that, in another phase of his life, would have gone unnoticed. But at that moment, in that context, it sounded like a signal. Patrick froze inside. He tried to laugh along, but his mind was already racing. Lauren never mentioned bars. She always said she dined with Julie, that they chatted, had a glass of wine, and left. She never spoke of a dance floor. Never used that kind of vocabulary. And though he wanted to ignore it, that tiny detail started growing inside him, like an unwanted seed sprouting in fertile ground. In the following days, Patrick became more attentive. He started noticing the time Lauren left, how long it took her to get ready, the way she avoided eye contact when saying, "I'll be back soon." Everything was very subtle, but now he noticed. Something had changed, and maybe the mistake was in having trusted so much without asking anything. Not out of jealousy, but due to complete absence of presence. He was no longer inside Lauren's life, he was just beside it. And that thought really began to bother him. Patrick wasn't a paranoid man, but neither was he naive. That warm, predictable life he had built was beginning to show signs of wear. And what he feared most was realizing he had taken too long to notice. The tension inside Patrick had stopped being just an uncomfortable feeling. Now it was a constant, suffocating presence that invaded his thoughts even during the simplest tasks. He could no longer concentrate at work, nor relax in the evenings. Every time Lauren got ready to go out with Julie, something inside him screamed. It wasn't jealousy, it was a premonition, one of those that come without proof but carry the weight of something real. He knew he had to do something. He had to step out of the dark. It was on a common night, seemingly peaceful, that he made the decision. Lauren announced she would take a shower before bed. Patrick waited for the water to start running, grabbed the spare key to her car, and slipped out the front door quietly. He walked to the garage, opened the car door, and in less than 2 minutes, discreetly installed the small GPS tracker under the passenger seat. He had bought that device a few days earlier after researching secretly during the night. He never thought he would do something like this. He had always been proud of the trust he placed in his wife. But something had changed. And he needed the truth, without intermediaries. He returned to the house as if nothing had happened. The sound of the shower still echoed. He took a deep breath and stored his phone with the app installed, which now showed a fixed point in the garage. He didn't say anything, nor did he ask questions. He simply wished her good night when she came out of the bathroom and pretended to fall asleep right away. In the following days, he monitored the movements calmly, without giving any clues. He observed that Lauren really did stop by Julie's house during the week, as she claimed. They would meet at a cafe, then each would head to work. Everything seemed expected. For a moment, he almost believed he was wrong. But then came Friday. During breakfast, Lauren casually mentioned that she would be going out later with Julie. She said they would have dinner at their usual Italian restaurant, and maybe stop by the house of a mutual friend who had recently ended an engagement. The story came ready, as if it had been rehearsed. Patrick feigned distraction. He made a joke about her taking advantage since he wasn't there and wished her a good night. As soon as she left, he opened the app on his phone and fixed his eyes on the small blue dot moving across the city map. She didn't go to the restaurant. Nor did she stop by the friend's house. The route was direct to a bar in the central area, known for live music, a laid-back atmosphere, and, especially, a crowd looking for fun without much commitment. The GPS showed her car parked there. Without thinking twice, Patrick put on the first clothes he saw, grabbed his wallet, and left the house. When he arrived at the location, he recognized her car parked in front. He parked on the back street, got out, and walked to the entrance. The bar was full. Music played loudly, laughter and voices crossed the room. There was no line, so he entered. The smell of alcohol and perfume hit strongly. He needed a few seconds to find Lauren. She was in the center of the room, dancing lightly, surrounded by strangers. Julie was nearby, smiling, chatting with a man at the bar. Lauren didn't seem worried about anything. She drank, tossed her hair back, exchanged glances with a younger man clearly familiar with her. It didn't take long for them to get closer. First hands on shoulders, then on the waist. And then came the kiss. A direct, confident kiss, as if it had been practiced before. She smiled afterward, as if that moment was natural. As if it was routine. Patrick watched everything without moving. There, standing still, he understood what had been bothering him for so long, even if he couldn't name it. It wasn't the fear of losing her, it was the realization that, long ago, he had already stopped being part of her life. Lauren had found another version of herself, one that bloomed when he wasn't watching. And perhaps this had been happening for years. The GPS only confirmed what his heart already knew. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional. And maybe the worst part was realizing that, in some way, he had also allowed it to happen. Patrick returned home in silence, his body present but his mind still at the bar. The image of Lauren kissing another man remained intact in his memory, as if it had been cruelly etched. During the drive, he mentally rehearsed the words he would use, the tone he should keep, the right way to say it without losing himself in chaos. Inside, his chest burned, yet he breathed deeply, as if trying to delay the inevitable for a few more minutes. When he parked, he stayed inside the car for a while, just looking at the house where he had lived half his life next to a woman who now seemed strange. He entered, washed his face, and sat on the couch. He waited in silence. The clock moved slowly, and each minute increased the weight of that night. When he heard the sound of the door opening, he knew the moment had come. Lauren entered, smiling with the same expression she wore on so many other Fridays. She took off her shoes, commented that the dinner was great, and that Julie had left early because she was tired. She spoke naturally, without suspecting anything. Patrick observed every word, every move, without responding. When she noticed his silence, she hesitated. She asked if everything was okay, and then he asked the only question that really mattered, "Are you still happy here?" Lauren froze. Her smile vanished. She stood motionless for a few seconds, trying to understand what that meant. Then she looked down and murmured something like, "Why are you asking me that?" Patrick continued staring, calm and direct. He repeated the question. This time, she sat down and said yes, that she loved him, that she always had, but sometimes felt lost. And it was in that moment that he revealed. He said he had seen everything. That he was at the bar. That he had seen her dancing with other men. That he had seen her kissing someone. And that, unlike what she said, those outings weren't dinners, weren't quiet conversations with Julie. The confession fell like a punch to her chest. Lauren turned pale, unsure of what to say. She tried to justify, to say it was a mistake, that it was just a moment, that it meant nothing. But every word seemed to dig deeper into the hole between them. Patrick listened, but didn't react. It was as if he already knew everything before hearing it. When she started crying, saying she was confused, that she had felt alone for years, that she needed to feel alive again, he just remained silent. He listened carefully, but without trying to fix anything. She said she felt ignored, that she had tried to revive the marriage, but that he seemed always too busy with work, with the routine. She said she didn't seek that out, that it just happened. That she didn't want to destroy anything, but at the same time, she didn't know anymore what she was trying to hold on to. Patrick listened. And then he responded, with a calm voice, that he knew she had been drifting away for a long time. That he acknowledged his mistakes. That he regretted closing himself off, becoming too predictable, present in body but absent in soul. He said that, deep down, he had always feared losing her, but the fear had turned into paralysis. And while he thought he was protecting what they had, she was dying inside. The silence between them stretched. It was as if they both already knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Patrick then said that he didn't see sense in continuing pretending they were still what they once were. That, despite existing affection, respect, and history, something was missing that neither of them could pretend still existed. He didn't shout, didn't demand justifications, didn't make a scene. He simply made clear that he understood. And that, although painful, the end was the only possible path to reclaim whatever dignity remained between them. Lauren cried silently. She didn't desperately apologize. She didn't beg for forgiveness. She just lowered her head and admitted she had crossed a line she shouldn't have crossed. She said she also felt that they were trapped in an old version of a love that no longer made sense in the present. And after a few minutes, she accepted what Patrick proposed, to go their separate ways. In the following days, they discussed the separation calmly. They divided the practical responsibilities with the same respect that had always existed between them. Lauren packed her things and moved in with her sister. The divorce was handled without arguments. The house stayed with Patrick. The documents were signed with a handshake and a look that said more than any words. The wound was open, but there was peace there. The peace of someone who, for the first time in years, had an honest conversation. The peace of someone who understood that love doesn't end in screams, but in silences. And that sometimes, respecting the other person's pain is the only act of love possible before leaving. Months passed since the separation, and Patrick had to relearn how to occupy his own space. The house, now silent and untouched, still carried the traces of a long story, but he no longer felt the weight of Lauren's absence in the same way. Slowly, he let go of automatic habits, of memories that used to suffocate him. He stopped making coffee for two people, stopped worrying about the time someone else would arrive. For the first time in a long time, he looked at himself honestly. He realized his identity had been tied to a role that no longer made sense. He had become someone who accepted stability as synonymous with happiness, but that wasn't life, it was just maintenance. During a visit to the doctor for routine exams, the cardiologist's comment about his health struck him directly. Sedentary lifestyle was already showing signs, cholesterol was high, and stress levels were beyond limits. It was on that day that he decided to do something different. He signed up for a gym in the neighborhood, not out of enthusiasm, but on impulse. He wasn't looking for a new body, he just wanted to prove to himself that he was still capable of caring for something, and that something was himself. The first days were uncomfortable, full of comparison and doubt. But at the same time, there was a freeing disconnection there. No one knew his name, his story, no one expected anything from him. He was just one more among many trying to start over. It was in the third week that he noticed Emily. She wore earphones, barely spoke to anyone, but the way she laughed occasionally, looking at her phone between workouts, caught his attention. One morning, while they were on the treadmill side by side, a technical problem with her machine led to a casual comment. Patrick responded with something simple, and the two ended up laughing together. From then on, the encounters became frequent. After a few conversations between one exercise and another, they started grabbing coffee at the nearby cafeteria. The conversation flowed naturally, effortlessly. Emily was 30, a nurse who had come out of a troubled relationship a few months before. She had a light energy, but a firm gaze, of someone who had been through a lot. And the most curious thing, she didn't ask too many questions about Patrick's past. And he, for the first time, didn't feel the need to justify himself. The connection developed subtly but intensely. There were no exaggerated declarations, no overly big promises. There was sincerity. In the small gestures, in the respected silences. Patrick was rediscovering himself, and with Emily, he didn't feel judged for his past. The two met in a moment of reconstruction, each carrying their own scars, but without the desire to hide anything. He relearned how to look into someone's eyes, how to listen without rushing, how to touch without fear. And perhaps the most important thing, he learned to receive attention without suspicion, to return affection without thinking he was doing something wrong. 6 months after the first coffee, Emily invited him to talk. It was an ordinary Sunday, sitting together after a light workout, and she seemed a bit nervous. She took a deep breath and said she had taken a pharmacy test. She showed the result. Patrick looked, read slowly, and the word positive jumped out at him. Emily held the paper with trembling hands, but her eyes searched for security. Patrick remained silent for a few seconds. Not shocked, but emotional. He felt something rise in his chest, something old, forgotten, that had long been buried. He remembered the frustrated attempts with Lauren, the appointments, the silent tears, the sleepless nights. And now, that piece of paper brought the real possibility of something he had always wanted, but had already given up dreaming of. He held her hands firmly and said only, "We'll live this together." Emily cried right there, hugging him. Patrick didn't need time to think. That decision had already been made inside him a long time ago. It was as if life had waited for the right moment to give him what he had always desired. For the first time in years, he felt he was exactly where he needed to be. And in that embrace, without rush, without the need to understand everything at once, he allowed himself to cry too. Not from pain, but from gratitude. It wasn't just any fresh start. It was life speaking clearly, telling him there was still so much to live. And that even the oldest dreams can be reborn when we least expect it. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.